Thea. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be the second book look. I read the book The Lion Game by Ruth Ware. I'm not sure if you guys read along with me or if you're just interested in hearing about these book reviews while I do my makeup. This book did take place in the UK and like around the London area, so the look I'm going to be doing today is kind of, I guess, British makeup looks. If you know anything about the style, it's kind of heavier and like a lot of people have made memes and videos and funny things about it. But I'm just gonna try to go through and maybe use like a little darker of a foundation, maybe make my eyebrows a little bit bigger, and then I'll be using the Blue Blood palette for the eyeshadow. The book is actually broken down into 5 different parts, and the title of each part is kind of the rules to their lying game. So it starts out with part 1 being tell a lie, part 2 is stick to your story, part 3 is don't get caught, part 4 is never lie to each other, and part 5 is know when to stop lying. So like I said, the story takes place around London. They're in like little smaller towns outside of London, and it's about these 4 girls, Isa, Kate, Fatima, and Thea. It's all from Isa's point of view, which I thought was interesting that they chose one character's point of view. It kind of gave me some Pretty Little Liar vibes, just like a group of teenage friends making mischief. So that's why I thought it would kind of rotate between the different characters. But it's just from Isa's point of view, and this is all when they're older and adults. They all went to school together at like a boarding school outside of London, and that's how they all met and how they all became friends. It kind of describes Isa is a mom. She just had a baby who's, I think at this month like 6 months old or something, 6 weeks. I don't know, I can't remember. I think 6 weeks. And then there's Fatima, who is also a mother of, I believe, 4 kids. And then Thea doesn't do anything really. I mean, she has a job, but she's just known. She has always like smoked throughout their time together, and even like when they get older. And she's also really skinny. She used to be either anorexic or bulimic, and I think it kind of still continued on into adulthood. And then we have Kate, who still lives in the same house she lived in when they all went to boarding school. Her dad used to be a teacher there, so they lived within the town that the school was located. Eventually you do get introduced to Ambrose and Luke, and Ambrose is Kate's dad and Luke is kind of her stepbrother. I don't really know if they're actually related or if Ambrose was just a good guy and took Luke in. So that's their kind of family dynamic, and the girls go over there all the time and always hang out at Kate's house every weekend and things like that. So they all kind of become a family together. So part 1 just kind of introduces each of the characters and kind of sets up the tension of the story. While they're all at their own homes, they get a text from Kate saying, "I need you." And even though they have not seen each other in like the 15 years since they graduated, they still answer the call just because it means that someone has found out or something has happened with thing that happened while they were at school. And you don't find out this thing until like a lot later, like maybe halfway through the book. So they all meet up at Kate's place, and she lets them all know that a bone was discovered near the waters where she lives. She lives kind of like in a marshy area, high tide, low tide, all that fun stuff. And that scares them all a lot. It's something that they were really scared was going to happen in that time frame. And so hearing that just really sets them all on edge. So the morning after she tells them this, they all wake up to Kate outside, blood on the floor, and it looks like the dog had killed a sheep from a neighboring farm. So she has to deal with that, but as she's cleaning things up, she finds a note that she hides in her pocket. Isa finds it later, and it says something along the lines of, "Would you throw this body into the lake too?" And so they find out that someone else knows what they did, which was obviously throw a body into the lake, but they don't really specify who that body is, what that body is. So it freaks them all out, and Isa decides that she's going to go walk into town, which is like 4 miles, and she brings her baby with her, so she's walking with this stroller for 4 miles into town. And when she gets there, she kind of talks to Mary Wren, who is like the town person, I guess. She is someone you don't want to mess with, someone you don't want to get on the bad side of. So she's talking to her, and she's kind of like saying, Mary Wren is kind of saying weird things. And then in comes Luke. And he is really mad and is very threatening to her. And so she kind of runs out and goes back to Kate's house, and she tells everyone Luke is here. And Luke actually grew up in France before moving in with Kate and her dad. So the rumor was that after whatever had happened, Luke went back to France and no one had heard anything about him coming back. But he was there. And something that everyone is curious about is why these girls are here when that news breaks that there was a body found. They have not come back in 15 years. So what is the point of them coming back now at this point when something people know that something fishy has gone on. So their cover up is there's an alumni dinner at the boarding school they went to. So that was where they had tickets for. That's why they came down just this random year, coincidental, everything. So it's finally at this alumni dinner that we find out what the thing was that happened. So they clearly left at some point during their time at this boarding school. It was kind of, their time there was cut short. So after the alumni dinner, when people are kind of drunk and have already had a lot to drink, there is one girl who goes up to Isa and kind of says, hey, we were all wondering why you guys were here. Is it true the reason you left? Is it true about Ambrose? Isa just kind of plays dumb and is kind of defensive, and she kind of says, what do you mean? And the girl says, oh, you know how Ambrose painted scandalous pictures of you guys and got caught and then killed himself because of it. So that's when it just kind of lays everything out, saying this is what happened. So now we know at least what's rumored to have happened, but we still don't know how the girls dumped a body into the lake. So we're not sure if Ambrose really did commit suicide or if the girls kind of made it look like suicide. So I'm an idiot and completely forgot to actually include what happened and what they did. So I drew some pictures to tell that story. First, the girls arrive at Kate's house, where they find her crying and holding a piece of paper, and it turns out that when she got home, she found Ambrose dead by the beach, having overdosed on heroin. He used to be an addict. So since she was about 4 weeks from turning 16, she was afraid that she wouldn't be able to live in the house if she reported him dead. So she asked the girls for their help in burying him in the sandbank, which they do without hesitation. And then the next day at school is when they find out why he committed suicide, and they're brought into basically the principal's office, and she kicks them out because of the scandalous pictures that they found. So that's my recap, and now back to the actual video. So when they get back from the alumni dinner, they find Luke there, and he's holding Isa's baby because Isa's baby was crying and he was trying to help the babysitter and everything. And so Isa gets really mad and takes her baby, and everyone is terrified. So then once they all go inside and they're contemplating why Luke is there, Isa also tells them that people know what they did and how she got confronted about it at the alumni dinner. It kind of freaks Fatima out, and so she's the first one to leave. Eventually Thea and Isa follow her. So now they're all at home, and Isa just keeps going over these details over and over again in her head, and eventually gets flowers delivered by Luke as kind of like an apology. And Isa's boyfriend finds them and, asks who Luke is. And she kind of dodges the question, and he's kind of doing it in a joking manner, but also in a serious way. So that scares Isa again as to how Luke got her address and why he's reaching out, and how he's just trying to scare her. She texts Fatima and Thea and says she wants to meet up. She has some things to discuss with them. So they decide a day and a place to go meet up. She tells them about Luke. But on her way out the door, there's an envelope, and in that envelope are more pictures, ones that were not released to the teachers who found out about it. So now they're sitting there contemplating what it all means and what they should do next. And that's when Isa speaks up about what she had thought had happened before, but she never really said it. She just kind of said, I think it was a murder. The everything doesn't line up. Why would Ambrose kill himself? These paintings that he did weren't even, like, they're taken out of context and things like that. So she thinks that he was murdered. And now that she's put that out in the open, everyone's kind of on edge. But they kind of just leave it at that. You know, they don't want to do anything until they have to, really. They want to avoid this as much as possible. So then when Isa gets home, her boyfriend had found the pictures and was upset about it and definitely thought she was cheating on him. So he asked her and she kept saying no. And so they got in this really big fight, and Kate texted her during that time and said, "I need you." So Isa was given the decision of either go to Kate or stay and work it out with her boyfriend. So she decided to leave and go to Kate. And when she gets to Kate, Kate says that they've identified the body as Ambrose and she knows that they're going to question her. So she just wants to get her facts straight. So then eventually Kate and Isa get into this big fight, and Isa then leaves to go to town to kind of cool down and kind of let Kate cool down. And while she's out there, she runs into Luke at a pub. And he apologizes and she apologizes, and they just kind of get to talking and get to know each other a little bit more. And eventually it becomes really, really late at night. He offers to walk her home, walk her to Kate's. But when they get there, the tide is really high. So he has to walk her and her baby through the marsh, basically. And so then when they get inside, they kind of have an intimate moment. But before anything could actually happen, she discovered that Kate was standing there and she was just kind of watching in a surprised way. So then Luke leaves and he kind of warns Isa that Kate is dangerous and that she shouldn't believe Kate and all this kind of iffy stuff. And he warns her to get out and take her baby with her, obviously. That's what she does the next morning. She is walking into town and is ready, has, you know, a train booked, has a place to go. But as she's walking, again, it's a 4-mile walk, she runs into Mary Wren, who then gives her a ride to the train station. And Mary Wren, again, doesn't really like the girls, and she just kind of has this knowledge of the town and everything that's going on in it. So she thinks that she knows what happened. She tells Isa that she knew that Kate and Luke had been having not an affair, but like were romantically involved. Ambrose found out and was going to send Kate away. And apparently it was like that next day that Kate had found Ambrose dead. Mary Wren says that the autopsy shows that he overdosed orally, which is not the way he would have if he knew what he was doing. So that's again why they think it was murder. Now Isa's really thinking this was a murder, and she's really thinking that the murderer is Kate, and she's going through all of these thoughts. So she goes back to London and talks again to Fatima and Thea, and they all decide that they're going to go and confront Kate and ask her for the real truth, because something is definitely not right, and especially because they had never known about Kate and Luke. So when the girls arrive to question Kate, Kate kind of confesses to it all and says, yeah, he found out about us. Yeah, he wanted to send me away. Yes, I killed him. So Kate confesses to it all and says it was all her, and that she's going to go to the police the next day and confess and say that none of them were involved and none of them had done anything. Oh my God, this is so out of order. So that night they all go to bed knowing that Kate is going to confess the next morning, but they wake up in the middle of the night to shouting, and it's between Luke and Kate. They're not sure how Luke got in the house or what they were arguing about, but they hear it. And then all of a sudden they hear like things being thrown around. And eventually Kate comes running downstairs saying that one of her lanterns had fallen and broken, and now everything was on fire. So she tells them all to get out of the house, which they do. But Isa had left her baby in one of the rooms upstairs, and there was no way to get to it for her to get to it. So Luke goes in there and tells her to go out into the lake so that he can drop her baby to her. So that's what she does, and after he drops the baby and the baby's safe, he doesn't come out, and he knows that he's going to die. So Isa goes back and says that, you know, Luke's still in the house. So Kate runs in, and they're all kind of screaming for Kate to come back. And once they realize that Kate and Luke must have been in there, the house collapses into the water. So they're all kind of standing there. They're trying to call 111. Well, they're trying to call 911, but in England it's 999. So that's what they call. So eventually it does come about that both Luke and Kate died in that fire? What do they do with the information that they have? So they go to the police officer and they tell him that Ambrose did commit suicide, and they had like a suicide note from him too. They said that the police officer believed them, so that's just kind of how it ends, is that Kate and Luke die, everyone's off the hook, and everyone's kind of happy in the end. Well, not really. So anyway, that was a really not correct, chronologically kind of confusing summary, but I didn't really like the book. I just thought that it took too long to discover what they had done. I just felt like there was too much lead up. I don't usually read books from this genre, so I think that that's just part of the genre, is waiting so long to actually reveal what has happened. So in my opinion, I just think it kind of dragged on too much and had too much non-essential information. So I think I'm just gonna leave it at that, just because I didn't really enjoy the book, so there's not really much else for me to say. But I do have the announcement for next month's books, 2 books, and it's H2O and The Storm by Virginia Bergen. And it's kind of like apocalyptic, where the rain and water is acidic and poisonous, and you'll die even from like a single drop of it, or even touching someone who has died from this contagion. So it's really interesting, and I think that it, I don't know, goes along with kind of the apocalyptic vibe. This one also takes part in England, so that's exciting. Yeah, I'm excited to read this book and do a review on it next month. So let me know in the comments down below what you thought of the book if you read it, or what books you recommend me reading in the future for these videos. Again, I'm going to try to make them a little bit more interesting than these past 2, but I'm making it work. So that's all I have for today's video, and I'll see you in the next one. And it is and that's when